Hello and welcome to my review of issue number 4 in the Warhammer 40,000 Conquest subscription. One of these will cost you £7.99 and it includes the paint Bugman's Glow, which is normally £2.50, and the easy to build set of Poxwalkers, which is normally £10. So for £12.50 you're getting all of this for £8, so you're saving £4.50. And if you really haven't had these Poxwalkers before and you really need another pot of paint, then of course this is going to give you more value. I like these models. I like all the Death Guard models. I think Games Workshop did a very good job, particularly in these models because they're all individual. None of them are duplicates, which you may find normally in easy to build kits, and even adding them to a squad of 10 or 20, they're going to blend in, especially if you paint their clothing slightly differently or modify them a little bit. What I like to do first is just have a look at the magazine itself. So we'll just move these out of the way a little bit. And the magazine's already sort of fallen apart. I've got up to issue 6, but I still haven't received my binder yet. Hoping to get that soon before all the pages like fly away. And I haven't really been using these magazines in other ways, just normally. I like how each one goes in depth into the units and describes the Poxwalkers, a bit more about the Death Guard, a how to build guide, a bit of how to paint them. It says here, time to try out your new paint, which is the Bugman's Glow. Now personally I wouldn't go through this guide like this. You can if you're new, if you're a beginner, that's fine, but personally I would either use them as green as they are, and have 2 forces and not paint them. But if you really want to get the most out of the hobby and you want to try your painting, personally I would spray them white with the skull white and then wash them with a fleshy shade, like Seraphim Sapia or something like that. And then I'd go and pick out the detail. I wouldn't use the Bugman's Glow straight onto the green because it just looks unfinished in my opinion. As you can see there, look, it does look unfinished, and they're all wearing blue, but this is where you are right now with the subscription, I suppose. It gives you a tutorial mission using all the models so far. Of course, this is before I've got the Death Guard, but you did get Death Guard in issue 2, which they never sent me. And then some more missions, and that's it. As I always say, I think it is a shame that for some reason Hatchet Park Works don't include the full rules that Games Workshop make to be able to use in the Warhammer 40,000 tabletop game. Instead, you're going to have to buy the Codex Heretic Astartes Death Guard Codex. It looks like that, and one of those will set you back about £25 or so, and the points and the rules and everything and more information about the Poxwalkers is found in this book, and this is where I will read all of their rules for you today. Before we continue, let's have a look at the models themselves and I'll go through a size comparison. So as I said at the start, I think they're quite unique, lots of detail on these miniatures. You've got their bellies popping out, you've got chains with grenades on, you've got lots of pus and pustules and, pouches even still, deformities, horns and bones bursting out the skin. All kinds of things happening on these. This guy's got a big wooden hammer with a tentacle and then some more horns, some intestines spewing out. They're really quite grotesque, but fit to the Death Guard army. There you go, zoom in. And then we've got this guy with a pipe with some long nails in or bolts in. Again, lots of tentacles and pustules and spots and things. This large fellow with some huge spots here on his belly and a big deformed pair of arms. Looks very happy. Those of the blessing the Papa Nurgle are in joyful amusement. Again, this sort of shoulder and arm has turned into a huge tentacle with like some kind of wrench tool thing. And then finally this guy here with some kind of corrupted axe with some goo spilling out on the wooden handle with some kind of mask, and he's in kind of like miner's clothes that you'd find with these knee pads, similar to Gene Stealer cults actually. So there's a bit of a crossover there with the whole universe. So now what I'll do is I'll just go through some size comparisons. So I always like to compare my models to a Space Marine. In this instance, I'll be comparing them to one of the Space Marine heroes, which in my opinion are the most accurate, up-to-date Space Marine sizes that you can get. As you can see, Space Marine is taller, even a little bit taller without that scenic base. But that's where they stand up against the Space Marines. Space Marines are, you know, big power armoured super soldiers. Next to a Primaris, we're going to use one from the Warhammer 40,000 Conquest subscription itself. Primaris definitely stand much, much taller than these little Poxwalkers. But of course, as you can see, they are prone to get ganged up on. But I'm sure that Intercessor can, you know, take them all out. I'm sure he'll be fine at the end of the day. And then comparing them to the big sort of daddies, the big Space Marine equivalents of the Death Guard is the Death Guard Plague Marines, which do tower a fair bit taller than them, and they definitely have much more bulk. You can see there the difference between sort of normal humanoid, corrupted, mutated beings to a Space Marine that's been kind of corrupted by Nurgle. Much, much bigger, much more bulk, obviously armoured, but still armoured with horns and teeth and tentacles and things ripping through their armour. So that's a common affliction throughout the whole of a Death Guard army. Okay, so this is my part of the review where I will go through all of the rules for the Poxwalkers. As I mentioned earlier, you'll find them in the Death Guard Codex, which came out last year. It's one of my favourite codexes out. You'll find them in the troop choice section. In the Death Guard army, you've essentially got six troop choices, six viable troop choices. You've got Plague Marines, which are these guys here in like the Space Marine type armour. You've got the Chaos Cultists, which are kind of like Poxwalkers, but with some guns, weak guns. You've got the Poxwalkers themselves, which we'll be talking about. You've got Plague Bearers, which don't have any clothes on, and they're kind of like Nurgle demons. And then you've got the little squishy Nurglings, which are the tiny little things. And again, they're like swarms of little horrible Nurgle creatures, but they're quite cute though. Let's talk about the Poxwalkers then. So their power points cost is a 3 if they consist of 10. Now, the strange thing is you only get 6 of them, so you can't make a legal squad. Like with many of the models that you get with this series, you're not going to be able to make anything kind of legal in-game for it. Poxwalkers themselves, they're only 6 points per model. You can include up to 10 additional Poxwalkers, and each model is armed with an improvised weapon. Hence why you've got the wooden mallet and the chisel and things like that. That's the improvised weapon. So they're very cheap at 6 points. Chaos Cultists are even cheaper at 4, so they're the second cheapest units in the whole army, because Plague Bearers are actually 1 point more, and that's mainly because they've got a 5+ invulnerable save and they've got a Plague Sword, which helps them re-roll failed wound rolls. So the Poxwalkers then, their stat line is a movement of 4 inches, weapon skill 5+, ballistic skill 6+, strength and toughness are both 3, 1 wound, 2 attacks, leadership 4, and a save of 7+. Pretty much means that they're not really going to get a save. The improvised weapon is just a melee weapon, and it's the strength of the user, which will be a pitiful 3, and a damage of 1. Their abilities, they have Disgustingly Resilient, which you may not have heard before, as this is my first Death Guard video for the Conquest series, so I might as well go ahead and just explain it quickly. It boils down to each time a model with the ability loses a wound, you roll a dice, and on a 5+, the model does not lose that wound. So you're not normally going to get a save from them, but you roll a 5+, and they're not going to die. That's what it means. They've got Curse of the Walking Pox. Each time an enemy infantry model is slain by a Poxwalker in the fight phase, you add 1 model to the Poxwalker's unit. That's great. They've got no ranged weapons, so you've got to get them in close. I'd suggest a large blob of 20 of them, and they just turn into a meat grinder, and you're killing units in melee. Well, you might be killing units in melee if they fail armor saves, and then you're just adding more. So they become like the Walking Dead. You're just adding more to their army, to their unit. Mindless. This unit never has to make morale tests. That's brilliant. They're mindless, don't need to roll any leadership, they're not going to run away or anything like that. Diseased Horde. You can add 1 to all hit rolls for this unit in the fight phase if it contains more than 10 models. Another reason why you should pick 20 over 10. Yes, it's going to cost you a little bit more points, but it means you add 1 to the hit rolls. The weapon skill is 5+ anyway. They're going to need all the help that they can get, so get 20 of them. Keywords is Chaos, Nurgle, Heretic Astartes, Death Guard, Infantry and Poxwalkers. So that's the Poxwalkers. I've gone through all of the other units in the Codex before, last year. What do you guys think of these models and Death Guard in general? I think Death Guard last year was a fantastic release and I was so pleased to be part of that and managed to get my hands on that whole army. So this is just another selection of Death Guard models to feed that army, to build up the numbers. Please do put all of your comments and opinions below. It'd be great to hear from you. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. Thank you for watching. Papa bless.